think about this, and to find alternative ways and orders apart from civilization. All right. So yeah, and then now I'll ask some question. I don't know whether I was fast or not, but I have to ask some few questions that I've prepared. So firstly, I want to know from you, what do you think about this decoloniality? What is it decolonization is to you guys?
Can I answer that? Okay. For me, decolonization is being free, like you said, from being captured, right? Being free to that state that you are independent. You don't depend on something, or you don't depend in a country. You just obtain freedom, and you an independent person or a country. So I'll just explain the word itself. I'm not going to be political about it. So that's my understanding about the word.
So freedom and independence.
And independence, and taking yourself away from orders of somebody or something or a country, and just being your own self.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. And anyone else?
For me, I'll say decoloniality is about seeking the true essence of democracy, where democracy only ends with giving the people of the land, or giving freedom or governance as a democratically elected government. What decoloniality does is that it takes it a step further to then redress what was done through our structures, through our education systems, through other systems, basically, that work within society. So it's a true essence of democracy.
Any suggestion, Lauren? What do you think?
I'm not familiar with the term decoloniality. I can't even say it.
Decolonialization.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, it sounds like if somebody just said that word to me, because I know what colonialism means. So if somebody just said that word to me, it almost sounds like the reverse of that, or the opposite of that. And so I'm thinking, is it even possible to reverse or be the opposite of that one thing? Because if something's happened to you, you can't reverse it, or you can't take it back. Yes, you can try to, like you say, gain independence. We can try to find the essence of what would South Africa be specifically if we were never colonized. What would that essence have been if we had to be left alone on our own, and the people that were here at that time, they were able to progress at their own speed, at their own pace. There's no how can I say, there's no way that we could foretell the future and say that we wouldn't be in a similar situation that we're in now, or we wouldn't have buildings, we wouldn't have structures, because a lot of people on social media somehow think that we wouldn't have running water, or we wouldn't have pipes, or we wouldn't have buildings. There's no way to tell that wouldn't have happened. But so I don't know if I agree with that phrase, but I do, or the construct of what decoloniality means. But I do believe that because we are a colonized country, there's no reason why we shouldn't aim or persevere or try to gain some form of independence ourselves, and make up our own rules and make up our own minds about what we want South Africa to represent in an absence of what colonization would have or what in an absence of what colonization actually impacted our country on. So there's no reason why we can't make up our minds going forward, but I don't know if we can ever take it away or reverse it.
Yeah, definitely, that's a good point. And you also answered the second question as well.
You go, girl.
Oh, yeah. And Matthew, about adding there, now do you think also is it decoloniality possible to remove those systems?
Basically what Lauren just said, we can't take it back as to what has happened previously. So we also can't tell us to the future. But on Lauren's point, I think she answered the question really enough.
Alright, but as you know, guys,
It's like a matter of opinion, so
Yeah.
if you have your own perspective.
Okay, sorry,
There's
just
no
to hold
backing
you
up.
there, but I'll want that point as well that you are raising hands on. But I want to know now, since how am I gonna put this? Coloniality has created separation in our country, actually. Although they've created the system and we inherited on their systems, but it did create separations as well, of which it's another point that I will put it out, that it created a third-class citizen out of a certain population, and the other one were perceived as probably the elite class.
Yeah.
Don't you think that will help as well through this thing to address those things as well and put it out there?
Decoloniality.
Because that's also in the mind, because our people might be affected and have the low esteem about themselves because of how they were treated, and then probably some might remain as a third-class citizen. Do you think that is a valid point, or it's a matter of choice?
I think in this day and age, it's becoming more and more difficult the more we progress, the more generations move on, because generations that are coming don't know what in essence it was to be African before colonization. We don't know what would have defined us as African. Most young people now would define them in such a way where they already include the principles of colonization without even realizing it. And so
Or the colonizers.
that we were colonized, and with more countries now taking over, other like China's invasion of Africa, we're moving to a different viewpoint of colonization, and it seems we've just replaced one master with another, and it's becoming more and more difficult to recognize when we're being colonized or when we're being assisted, especially since we are a third world country. So to be able to say that decolonization will actually assist in terms of redressing the divide, I don't know. For me, if you want to decolonize properly, you have to go to the essence of what it is to be African. And to do that, we need to define what is Africanism, who are we before we were colonized, what are the principles we'd like to maintain, and with that, do young people still recognize that? Can we still live according to that? Is it still possible in this day and age to be that?
But I love your point that now we can go back to the Africanism, because it goes also, this thing, it's like it's flowing now. It goes also to the point.
It's getting so exciting.
It also goes to the point where the UCT student, remember when they wanted to remove the Rhodes Memorial?
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, and EFF also, they attempted to remove the Verwoerd statue in Parliament. So the point is now in addressing the decoloniality part and saying, no, we cannot glorify colonialization. So it must be removed. And finally it was removed, but the people who established those institutions, their system are still working, because all of those students who removed that, they graduated with the colonial universal knowledge or system or education. So do you think that helped, or we also must channel that through education? Or
No, I mean, I think like to go to your point, like I don't think there's anything wrong with tearing down previous colonizers or previous slave owners or previous gainers of apartheid. I don't think there's anything wrong with tearing down those statues. Why should somebody be reminded of that every day if they're walking past their university, or if they're walking on their way to work? Why must there be a statue of Verwoerd or Cecil Rhodes? I don't mind that if those are torn down, but does it fix anything? I mean, in your mind, if you are freer, then I suppose it does. But if you are still shackled in terms of economically and socially, does it really? We can't say what the price is or what the advantages are of tearing down infrastructures or statues. of oppressors, because it's quantifiable. It might mean more to Moody than it does to me. It might mean more to me than it does to Moody. But how you can't quantify a price like that. So if she walks past and she doesn't have to be reminded of her vote, for example, and it's freer in her mind, then why not do it? So it doesn't. For me, it doesn't make a difference. But I mean, your question actually was going to the divisiveness, right, and how that came about. But I mean, the issues that we have, even if we do blame it all on apartheid, or we do blame it all on colonization, we can put the blame there, but what can we actually do about it moving forward? And maybe the thing is, we do have to go back to complete basics. We have to make up our minds on what kind of an Africa, what kind of a South Africa we want for ourselves. And maybe then, if in our minds we are freer, maybe then physically you see the manifestations of that. If you can free yourself spiritually, emotionally from that, then maybe physically you start seeing, I don't know, it's going to take a really long time. It's going to take a lot of generations, because people forget that you can't just like overturn from the beginning of time anything like that. So if it took like, I don't know, 30 generations for something, for us to be in the position that we're in now, maybe it's going to take 60 generations to overturn that. So I don't see it happening in my own lifetime, but that doesn't mean that we can't all work towards it now.
So what about the student now? Do you think the protest was inadequate? They should have addressed the system that Rhodes brought, because he brought the university systems.
Yeah.
Don't you think they should have addressed the system, the education first, instead of the statue? Because the education, it deals with the mind, and the statue is just a statue. And they just removed the symptom, and they didn't deal with the cause.
For me, when it comes to decolonializing, right, everything goes back to politics, right? Whatever that is happening around us, socially, politically, economically, it goes back to the leaders who are in huge positions, right? We can we can have debates, we can do 1 and 2 and 3, but it all goes back to Parliament. Parliament are the ones who change policies. Parliaments are the ones who change the constitutions. So it doesn't matter if UCT students or UNISA students or whoever, they come together, but it all goes back to Parliament, where they take big decisions like changing the policies, changing the constitution, changing A and B and C. So as she mentioned, it's going to be a long journey that is going to take years, because what I see when it comes to our leaders, they are so stubborn to change most of the things that really affect us.
That touches on the point that I was making. Currently, the system we use in government, that parliamentary system, is a colonization of its own. So in order to